This isn't a Christmas story. It's a reckoning wrapped in lights. My only daughter, Amelia, looked me dead in the eye at a glittering holiday gala and said, "You're not invited for Christmas." I smiled, walked out, and said nothing. 48 hours later, there were 24 missed calls, a shattered engagement, and two of my oldest business partners scrambling to hide a betrayal years in the making. By New Year's, I'd canceled the Bentley she assumed was hers, froze the penthouse mortgage I'd been paying in secret, and turned Savannah's old money circles inside out, without raising my voice. Stay with me, because the final 5 minutes will change how you measure love, respect, and power. Subscribe if you love true-to-life family dramas. And drop your time zone in the comments, so I can know where you're listening from. I can still smell the river that night. A briny, wood smoke hush only Savannah can brew. Rain slid down wrought iron balconies in the historic district, and cobblestones along Factor's walk shone like wet coins. I'd flown home from Dubai 3 days early, contract signed, deals humming. At 62, with hair the color of winter pewter and joints that creak friendly warnings on cold mornings, nothing excited me like the idea of surprising my daughter for Christmas. Under my coat, I cradled a small gift box, humble size, weighty promise, the brass key to her new Bentley, a satin black flying spur with lunar stitching, plus a tidy folder beneath it. The final paperwork for the penthouse mortgage I've been quietly paying since spring. Clear title by New Year's. I told no one, not even the two men who knew everything else about me. Mark Devereaux and Curtis Holt had been my right and left hands since the first rented office on River Street, when a second-hand server coughed us awake and the bank manager kept our calls on hold long enough to rehearse humility. Now our company, Savannah Atlantic Logistics, ran like a tide you could set your watch by. Cranes bending like prehistoric birds, containers stacked in painted puzzles, ships gliding in under moonlight while the city slept. Money didn't fix my marriage. It didn't soften the years after Amelia's mother died. But money bought time, and I spent every minute I could on that girl. Piano lessons, museum afternoons, Christmas Eve carols at the Cathedral Basilica. Presence is the only present that never depreciates, I used to say, and I believed it. So I walked into the Grand Magnolia Ballroom with rain on my coat and hope in my ribs. The gala sparkled, strings thrummed, champagne hissed, and pearls gleamed like small moons along Savannah necks. Donor banners climbed the walls. Photographers gardened smiles with their flashes. I waited for the MC's pause, for the swell of small talk. Then Amelia saw me. Her dress was midnight poured into silk. Her eyes, her mother's eyes, flashed surprise, then caution, then something practiced. She crossed the marble fast and beautiful and said, quiet but clear enough for nearby ears, "Dad, I wasn't expecting you for Christmas. Please don't come." There's sentences that don't land. They detonate. The chandeliers didn't dim. The quartet kept playing. No one screamed. Yet something ended in me with the clean rip of a page torn from a book. I looked at my daughter, my child, and saw a stranger who had rehearsed that line. No scramble for kinder words. No nervous laugh. Just a neat incision. If you've never learned stillness, it's a useful skill. Stillness is not absence. Stillness is choice. I breathed. I'll let the room wash over me. Clinking glass, silk rustle, the faint electric smell of stage lights. I tucked the gift deeper under my coat, put my free hand in my pocket, and, God help me, I smiled. Then I nodded. Understood. I turned and walked out into the rain. When respect exits a room, love follows it out in silence. On Bay Street, a carriage trotted past with bells that sounded embarrassed on my behalf. I could have texted something sharp or staged a scene donors would replay for 3 winners. I chose Savannah's better language, rain's soft consonants, and a long inhale of the river. I walked until the air tasted like wet rope and diesel, and the wharf lights spooned gold over Blackwater. My phone buzzed. Mark? Back early? Gala's a zoo. I pocketed it. Curtis sent a link to a trade write-up praising our Veracruz expansion. I pocketed that too. Between the ballroom and the Bentley, I did the kind of math that leaves a mark. Added years of fatherhood to months of distance, subtracted one sentence, carried the hurt, and arrived not at rage, but at clarity. By the time I reached my car, I had 3 decisions. Decision 1. I would say nothing to Amelia tonight. Words are cheap. Consequences are currency. Decision 2. I would pause what I'd quietly built for her until gratitude had a pulse again. Decision 3. I would finally audit the ledger I kept for Mark and Curtis, the one I stopped opening because loyalty is a sweet narcotic. I drove the old grid slow, under live oaks that made the streetlights look buttery. In the underground garage of my Abercorn Street building, I killed the engine and sat in the dark until the wipers timed out and the cabin hummed like a ship's heart. I pressed the gift box to the steering wheel. The brass key thudded softly, a second heartbeat asking permission. Not yet, I said. Upstairs, the penthouse smelled like cedar and coffee. On the kitchen island, I set the box beside a framed photo. Amelia at 5, flower on her lashes, building gingerbread stairs while her mother laughed out of frame. The oven clock winked 10:03 p.m. I flipped my phone face down. I poured water. Then I called my attorney. Julian, I said when he answered, voice thick with sleep. 2 actions and 9 a.m. He cleared his throat. Name them. Freeze the Bentley delivery. Keep it in storage. Registration remains with my trust until further notice. Pen scratch. Understood. Second, pause the penthouse mortgage payoff. I'm funding for Amelia. I'll carry penalties. Title transfer is suspended. Reassess January 3rd. He hesitated. Should I expect conflict? No. I stared at the gingerbread photo, felt an ache big as a dining table. We're expecting learning. Very well, he said gently. I'll email confirmations. Also send paper letters, I added. Old-fashioned. Some lessons like to be held. He understood. Savannah lawyers always do. Sleep came thin as tissue. At 4, I did what businessmen do with pain. I organized it. I opened my laptop and pulled manifests for 6 of our busiest lanes, clicked warehouse camera logs, reviewed purchase orders with the tenderness of a father counting fingers and toes. I wasn't hunting trouble, not exactly. I was looking for pattern, the rhythm under the melody. Twice, small flags flickered. Twice, I told myself I was tired. At 5:30, I laced my shoes and jogged the riverfront, breath fogging, muscles negotiating. As I passed our River Street office, a single light burned on the 2nd floor. Curtis favored early starts, or favored being seen favoring them. With Curtis, those things were cousins. Back home, the phone on the island pulsed with emails from Dubai, a magazine request, and 3 from Mark labeled small anomaly. Call went up. Anomaly, word that wears cologne and apology. I dialed. What's the anomaly? Probably nothing, he said, which always means something. Discrepancy in warehouse D. 2 pallets of copper show as shipped, but sit on the floor. Scanner glitch maybe. Curtis says human error. Curtis would, I said. Meaning, he believes in the optimism of mirrors. Mark chuckled, relieved. Wanted to fix it. Don't fix it yet, I said. Just watch it. You okay? Heard you stopped by the gala. I did. And the chandeliers still work, I said, and ended the call before kindness got expensive. Most betrayals have a rehearsal. We just call it benefit of the doubt. By noon, the city's grapevine had fermented the gala into legend. A friend texted a society photo, Amelia radiant in Starfield silk, her fiancé, Elliot Rhodes, standing at her elbow with bespoke caution in his eyes. The caption praised transparency and donor angels and omitted fathers. At 12:07 p.m., Amelia texted, "Dad, can you call me when you're free? Love you." I flipped the phone face down and invoked the rule that saved me more times than good luck. Don't respond from the wound. The best time to love a child is always. The best time to teach a child is not while your hands shake. At 1 p.m., I kept my board review with Mark and Curtis. The conference room windows ate the river. The table, rescued from a banker's mansion, smelled of lemon oil and old promises. On the wall, our report blueprint, blue as a chapel ceiling. Mark arrived first. Cardigan, corduroys, the friendly professor. Curtis breezed in late. New blue suit, bright smile, cologne working overtime. "Look who the tide brought in," Curtis said, clapping my shoulder. "Back early to save us from ourselves." "I'm here to listen," I said. We danced the usual. KPIs, fuel hedges, union closures, insurance. I watched them while they watched numbers. A good meeting is a card trick. Stare at the wrong hand and miss the move. When Warehouse D surfaced, Mark cleared his throat. "Small anomaly," he said, handing me a tablet. 2 pallets mis-scanned. The manifest line blinked innocent. The camera thumbnail, grainy, showed a forklift idling near an exit on a night the floor should have slept. "Who's on that lift?" I asked. Curtis shrugged. "Night guy. Could be Blake." "Blake doesn't slouch," I said. "He sits like there's a book on his head." Zoom. Pixel fog is stubborn, but posture is a biography. Whoever rode that forklift had Curtis's bar lean and Curtis's habit of resting an elbow like a man telling a joke he doesn't deserve. "I'll handle it," Curtis said too fast. "No," I said. "We'll handle it together." His smile flickered, the way porch lights do before storms. We tabled it, pretended to care about marketing budgets, then adjourned. In the hall, Mark lingered. "You good?" he asked. "I will be," I said. He nodded like a man, choosing where to set a loyalty that suddenly felt expensive. "Dinner at the old pink house?" "Us 3. Rain check," I said. "I've got a date with silence." Outside, the sky wore pewter and promise. City Hall's gold dome glowed like a stubborn sun. "Amelia again. Please call. I need to talk before Sunday." Christmas Eve. The words pricked like holly. I walked the squares. Chippewa, Madison, Lafayette, each a poem of oaks and benches. In Lafayette, a man played carols on a trumpet with more yearning than technique. Kids tugged parents toward candy windows. A woman in a red coat smiled at me the way people smile at someone thinking too hard. On a bench under a tree that had outlived 6 mayors, I typed, "I love you," and deleted it. Not because it wasn't true, but because love didn't need help. Respect did. Dusk came early. Savannah lit its holiday bones. Wreaths on gas lamps, ribbons on railings. Like an apology for every polished scar. I headed home. The elevator coughed me into the penthouse. The brass key in the box seemed to listen as I crossed the room. A container ship slid past, stacked with the world's wants. My phone buzzed. Instinct answered before wisdom voted. "Dad." Amelia's voice came through small, like she'd climbed into a closet. "Are you okay?" "I'm making tea," I said. "I'm sorry," she blurted. "Last night, donors press." I panicked. "I didn't know you were coming, and Elliot, he said we should. Look, I messed up. Please come over tonight. Or tomorrow. Just don't make the silence bigger." "How long?" I asked gently. "Had you practiced that sentence?" Silence. "Since Tuesday. Thank you for the truth. I thought if I told you not to come, people would stop asking about your business and how you could afford." She stopped. "Afford what?" "Nothing." Panic rushed in. "It doesn't matter. Please come." "Not tonight," I said. "We'll talk soon." "Are you mad?" "I'm awake," I said. And I love you. I love you too, she whispered, the way people say, please don't hang up. After the call, I wrote 3 lines on a yellow pad. 1. Warehouse D. Pulled 2 years of cameras. 2. Elliott Rhodes, clients, posture, any ties to Curtis. 3. Someone is talking about my money to my daughter. Morning broke bright and brittle. On page 7 of the paper, a charity blurb. Amelia glowing, Elliott beside her like a hired lighthouse. The pull quote, "We're building a future based on transparency." I laughed, a short sound that startled me. Transparency is a word. At noon, my concierge signed for 2 FedEx envelopes from Julian. One addressed to Amelia, the other to me. Mine held crisp clarity. I slid hers into my coat pocket. I could have couriered it. I didn't. Some things a father must hand a daughter, even if handing hurts. Before leaving, I practiced the hardest skill for men like me, not managing everything. I'd walk to Amelia's brownstone like any Savannah father. Ring. Hand her a letter about gifts becoming delayed until gratitude relearned speech. Then, because another letter had started drafting in my chest, I'd head to River Street and look my partners in the face. Mercy without memory is permission. The city felt crowded with secrets as I crossed Johnson Square. At Amelia's stoop, I paused, listening to the faint clatter of a life upstairs, mugs, a radio, a laugh at the wrong time. I rang. She opened with eyes that had lost a long argument. No makeup. Hair knotted like it wanted sleep. She stepped back the way you do for a familiar ghost. "I made coffee," she said, "and those almond cookies." "I'm not hungry," I said, and hated the edge in it. We sat. Her living room was modern and careful. Gray couch, white rug, 3 art books stacked like vows. A poinsettia drooped festive and resigned. "I am sorry," she said, voice steady like a speech. "I was terrified at the gala." Elliott said. She paused. A small mercy I noticed. "Say it." I told her. "He said people would speculate. About your money. The penthouse. He thought we should make boundaries. Clean lines. So we look independent. And by we, I said, he meant you." She blinked, stung. "Dad." I set the envelope on the table. "This is for you." 2 letters, same message. The Bentley is paused. The mortgage payoff is paused. Not canceled. I added, as her face crumpled, paused. I'm a teacher before I'm a banker, and my classroom has very expensive chairs. "You're punishing me," she whispered. "I'm raising you," I said, feeling the tremor leave my hands. "You made a public decision about our private bond. You're allowed. I'm allowed to adjust the economics that made it too easy to forget what relationships cost." From the kitchen, a timer beeped in protest. She ignored it. "I didn't mean it," she said. I panicked. "Then this is small," I said. "Temporary. We'll talk in January, when panic is a story you tell, not a room you live in." Tears lifted but didn't fall. "Do you still love me?" "That isn't on the table," I said, softer than I've been in years. "Love is the floor. We're discussing furniture." We sat there, 2 people in a life donated by a man relearning subtraction. Finally, she nodded, a little bow to adulthood, and picked up the envelope like it weighed what it said. The timer beeped again. She silenced it, returned with cookies neither of us touched. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. "I'll answer when I can," I said. We're learning to schedule each other again. On the stoop, cold air cleaned me. I walked south toward the river. By River Street, my hour had an outline, and my spine had the older kind of war. Not noise in streets, but doors closing on paper that can't be charmed. I took the office stairs 2 at a time. Didn't knock. Curtis stood at the window, feeding someone confidence. He flinched when he saw me. Mark looked relieved and ready to be disappointed by someone he'd loved too long. "We've got a problem," I said, taking the chair at the head of the table. "And we're solving it the way we built this company. Slow, correct, with receipts." Curtis opened his mouth. I raised a hand. "Warehouse D. For nights. Same posture. Same exit. Same story. Before you speak, remember this. I'm not angry. I'm finished making it easy." I sat, folded my hands, looked at both men the way the river looks at ships, calm as God and twice as patient. "Close the door," I said, "and don't answer your phones. In the next hours, one partner will confess, one will lie, and the exact person who taught my daughter to be ashamed of my money will make the costliest mistake of his life. I won't raise my voice. I'll just raise the bill. By sunset, one partner would confess, one would try to brazen it out, and my daughter would learn the exact price of a man who wants your last name, but not your backbone." I didn't bring fury to the table. I brought paper. Paper and patience. If Act 1 was silence, Act 2 is signal. If you're locked in, hit subscribe. Curtis didn't sit so much as arrange himself in the chair. Ankle on knee, jacket open, smile set to confident guest on a morning show. Mark folded his hands like an apology he hadn't decided to deliver. I put my yellow legal pad on the table, uncapped a pen, and watched both men the way a Coast Guard watches the line where river becomes ocean. "Warehouse D," I said, and slid a printed manifest toward them. 4 nights, same discrepancy. 2 pallets that learned to be in 2 places at once. Curtis didn't look down. "We run 20,000 pallets a month. Glitches happen. Do they also lean on forklifts the way you do?" I asked gently, then tapped a screen. The still image bloomed. Grain, shadows, a posture that might as well have been a signature. Curtis exhaled long, a man overplaying calm. "That could be anybody. Posture is biography," I said, "and yours loves a barstool." Mark blinked a slow blink that meant he had noticed too. "Kurt, talk to us." "You want a confession?" Curtis said, turning to him as if I were the stenographer, not the owner of the room. "Fine. I have been moving a sliver, a rounding error, to balance certain side deals that benefit us all. I take the risk. You get clean books. Everybody smiles. You'd thank me if you were brave enough to admit how this world works." I held up a hand before Mark's surprise could spill onto the table. "How exactly do we benefit from your rounding error?" Curtis leaned back, pleased to lecture. "Think of it like this. Suppliers expect loss. Clients expect loss. We skim from the margins, then grease the lanes that keep our ships moving. We run smoother. We make more. You're welcome." "Grease," I repeated, "with copper wire, steel coils, and other items that happen to fetch a pleasing price on third shift docks." Curtis rolled a wrist. "Months. A year. Not the point." "It's the only point," I said, sliding a second sheet across the table. "Receipts from a Shell buyer you registered through your cousin in Jacksonville. Funny thing about cousins, their signatures are lazier than yours." He stared at the page too long, the beat where courage considers lying and decides to try anyway. "That's not mine. I didn't say it was," I said. "But the forklift posture is." Mark's voice went quiet. "Kurt, why not bring us in?" "Because I've carried you both for years," Curtis said, and there it was, the vein. "While you do your Philosopher King walkabouts, I make sure we don't get eaten alive. The port's a shark tank, and I'm the only one here who knows how to bleed without dying." "Is that what you told Elliot?" I asked. That landed. His head snapped. "Elliot." I clicked to the next image. Not a warehouse this time, but a zoomed phone shot from a bar 2 blocks from Amelia's brownstone. Curtis at a high top. Across from him, Elliot Rhodes, investment smile dimmed, attention bright as a man pricing a room. Curtis's elbow lounged on the chair, back the same way it lounged on forklifts. Mark turned to me. How long have you been holding that? Long enough to stop hoping I was wrong, I said. They met 3 times in the last 6 weeks. And the week before the gala, my daughter practiced the sentence that broke Christmas in half. She didn't invent it. She was supplied it. Curtis spread his hands, a pastor at a small, failing church. I take meetings. So does Elliot. Savannah's a small city. Savannah's small, but my patience is not, I said. You seated Elliot with the story that my money was dirty. A rumor dressed in arithmetic. He took it to Amelia, wrapped in talk of optics and independence. She chose the donor's comfort over her father's chair. It was tidy. Tidy is your favorite sin. You can't prove that, Curtis said, but he didn't stand up because something in my voice told him the floor had changed. Elliot can, I said, and he will. Mark rubbed his brow. He looked older than he had an hour ago. Kurt, tell me this isn't what it looks like. Curtis turned on him. You think he's a saint because he writes quotes in the margins of meetings? He's rich enough to treat ethics like a hobby. The rest of us have to pay rent. The rest of us are partners, Mark said, and I loved him in that second for remembering the word like a prayer. Partners. Curtis laughed. You think we're equals? He jerked a thumb at me, walks into a ballroom and a city bows. I have to construct gravity from engineering. If I'm a little creative with a palette here and there, it's only to make the math you love so much keep loving us back. I capped my pen, slid it alongside the pad, and gave him a gift he didn't deserve, clarity. You're fired for cause. The words were simple, and the room rearranged itself around them. Curtis went very still, the first honest stillness I'd seen him manage in years. You don't have a board vote, he said. I don't need one to suspend you, I replied, sliding a pre-signed packet forward. Your key card is disabled as of now. Your company devices are locked. If you cooperate, we'll negotiate the narrowest of exits that keeps you out of orange jumpsuits. If you don't, I will drive you to the courthouse myself and hold the door. He stared at the packet as if it might teach him to read a different future. You staged this. No, I said. You did. I brought lighting. Mark reached for the packet with the expression of a man touching a live wire to see if it's done burning. Curtis, he said quietly, don't make this uglier. Curtis stood. For a moment, I thought he'd leap. Some men are born to lunge, but he just smoothed his lapel like a hostage, smoothing the cloth that will outlast him. You think you've won because you've got paper, he said to me. You don't know the conversations I've had to keep you in rooms. The favors I've spent with men who call favors by other names. Tell them to send invoices, I said. I still pay for labor. I don't pay for threats. He laughed once, a sound without home. You'll regret this. Not if you give me a better story, I said. And you won't. He walked out. The door took its time closing like Oldwood resisting bad endings. The room exhaled a different temperature. Mark sank back, eyes on the river. I should have seen it, he said. You did, I said softly. You just named a human error, because friendship is a generous accountant. He nodded once, grief and relief sharing a cup. What do you need me to do? Call legal, I said. Full audit. Freeze payments to any vendor Curtis on board in the last 18 months. Alert insurance. Quietly, Mark stood, grateful for verbs. And you? I'm going to talk to a young man who confused strategy with slander. Elliot Rhodes answered his door in a sweater that tried too hard and a watch that tried harder. His brownstone had the personality of a showroom. Correct furniture, no memory. He looked surprised to see me, then rearranged his face into professional host. Sir, he said, extending a hand he wanted me to take. I was going to call. I prefer doors to phones, I said, stepping past him. They remember who walks through them. He closed the door slowly, letting the click finish a sentence he didn't like. Amelia is out for a bit. I came to speak with you." He gestured toward a living room that smelled faintly of new carpet and caution. "Can I get you anything?" "An answer," I said, and placed on his coffee table a thin folder with his name on the tab. "Tell me why you met with Curtis 3 times without telling Amelia." He looked at the folder as if it might open and bite. "We cross paths in the district. Same circles." "Savannah doesn't have circles," I said. "It has spirals. They bring you back to the same faces until you decide to be honest." He sat, poised to deploy talking points. "Look, sir, I've built a reputation on transparency. Clients trust me to—" "Please don't use that word in this room," I said. "It's expensive and you can't afford it yet." "Did Curtis tell you I was dirty?" He kept his face impressively still, but stillness is a book for people who learn to read. A tiny muscle in his jaw wrote an essay. He told me there were irregularities. He said you were old school, that you didn't understand how modern supply chains work, that you were a good man and over your head. "Imagine telling a river it doesn't understand currents," I said. "Why would he tell you this?" Elliot inhaled the confidence he'd practiced in mirrors. "Because I'm marrying into your family, and he thought I should know what I'm protecting Amelia from." "She doesn't need protection from my ledger," I said. "She needs it from men who trade in suggestion." "Did you repeat his story to her?" He straightened. "I talked about boundaries, about optics, about how independence is an asset when you're building a public life. I never told her not to love you." "You don't have to say don't love," I replied. "You just have to say don't sit. You were the one who suggested she asked me not to come. It reads like a business school case. Reduce risk, signal virtue, control the narrative." He tried a smile that didn't make it to the eyes. "Sir, with respect, you can't know that." "I can," I said, "because she told me she'd been practicing this sentence since Tuesday." I let that sit with him the way a teacher lets a problem set sit on a desk. Practicing is rehearsal. Rehearsal has a coach. He looked at the folder again. "What's in there?" "2 things," I said, opening it to a single page. "A prenuptial agreement you sent my counsel to review without telling Amelia, and a list of talking points for last night's donors lounge that begins with 'create distance from legacy money.'" He flushed. "That's a draft. It's just a draft. Drafts tell the truth more than finished speeches. They haven't learned to lie beautifully yet." He swallowed, then leaned forward as if proximity could buy intimacy. "Sir, I want what's best for Amelia. I grew up on the outside of things. I know what it's like to watch the powerful make rules. I want her to be untouchable. She already is," I said, "because she is loved. That's the only kind of untouchable that survives a slow news week." His eyes flicked to the door, to the hallway, to the kitchen, inventorying escapes. "What do you want from me?" "A confession," I said, "and a courtesy." He frowned. "A courtesy? You're going to break this engagement," I said softly. "You're going to do it cleanly, kindly, and soon. Not because I command your romance, but because you chose my daughter as a strategy instead of a life. Strategy is seasonal. A life is not." He laughed once, a sound hungry for backup. "You can't dictate." I raised a hand. "I can make a choice about who is allowed to sit at my table. And because I love Amelia, I will not let her build a marriage on a rumor you helped engineer. I won't place a roof on quicksand." He stood a little unsteady. "She will hate you for this." "No," I said. She will hate the feeling that the floor moved. Feelings pass. Floors remain. He looked at the prenup again, anger finding his spyglass. You can't prove I don't have to, I said. I only have to decide what gifts I continue. The Bentley is paused. The penthouse is paused. The doors to my house are never paused, but men who teach my child to be ashamed of her family do not pass my hallway. Something brittle left his shoulders then. The cost of pretending to be larger than you are. You're going to make me the villain, he said. Son, I replied, not unkindly. You auditioned. A key turned in the front door. Amelia's voice came down the hallway in a little river. Elle? I grabbed She stopped when she saw me. I watched her face process the room. Me standing, Elliot standing, a folder open like a clean wound. Dad, I came to ask Elliot for a favor, I said. Her eyes flicked to him. What favor? Elliot tried to seize the moment. Your father is upset about Curtis. He's making moves. Curtis is fired, I said, simple as a weather report. We'll be fine. We're better already. She stared at Elliot, surprise rearranging into a math she didn't like. You met with Curtis? I meet with everyone, he said evenly. That's my job. It isn't, I said. Your job was to be honest with the woman you say you love. She turned to me, daughter and little girl braided together. Dad, please, don't do this here. I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm telling the truth in a room that keeps hiding from it. Her lips trembled, then forced themselves into an adult line. Elliot, did you tell me to distance myself from Dad because you heard rumors? Or because you wanted donors to like us more? He opened his mouth, closed it. Both, he said finally, and I admired the shard of courage that sentence cost him. She nodded slowly, absorbing the honest wrong like a vaccine. Okay. He blinked. Okay. I can't do both, she said, voice small and clear. I can either love my father imperfectly with him, or try to love my father perfectly without him. The second thing is just branding. Elliot's face did a very quiet thing then. The kind of collapse only people who have sold themselves a noble story feel. Amelia, she shook her head. No, if I ever ask my father to stay home again, it will be because he's sick, not because we're curating a photograph. She turned to me. Dad, can you give me the holidays to figure out my life? Yes, I said, and meant it inside my bones. But there's one thing I need now. What? I looked at Elliot. End it. Today. Don't make her teach herself how to do what you already know is right. His shoulders sagged. He nodded like a man agreeing to put away a costume. I'll pack a bag, he whispered. Amelia's face crumpled, then reassembled with mercy I didn't deserve. She nodded and walked to the bedroom, not to slam a door, but to give dignity a room to sit in. I waited while Elliot gathered the neat life of a man who'd hoped to build a taller one on my bricks. At the door, he glanced back. You'll win, he said, and there was no sarcasm left in him. Only weather. I'll teach, I said. Winning is for games. Now I go finish something at the office, I said. And you? Eat something, sleep, and call me tomorrow. We'll decide together how January learns our names. She nodded. Okay. I kissed her forehead, grown woman, child, miracle, and walked out into a Savannah afternoon that had decided to be sunny in spite of the script. Back at the office, Mark had laid out a battleground of accounting. Purchase orders, vendor lists, the thin little bones of criminal ambition called side invoices. He looked up. Legal's moving. Insurance flagged 2 claims that smell like Curtis. We're locking lanes as we find them. Good, I said. Now we bait the hook he's been biting. Mark's eyebrows lifted. A sting. A test, I said, sliding a new manifest across the table. Tomorrow night, Warehouse D receives 2 pallets from a vendor I control under a new alias. Each pallet contains RFID tags that report their heartbeats. If he takes the bait, we'll have movement and location pinned to the inch. You think he's reckless enough to keep trying after today? Men who call their theft practical believe in momentum, I said. He'll assume we're mopping, not hunting. Mark allowed himself a grin, not entirely kind. What do you want to call the operation? Christmas Carol, I said, because the past is about to visit our friend 3 times. He chuckled, then sobered. If this works, do we press charges? We offer mercy if he returns everything and names every ally, I said. We press charges if he mistakes my mercy for permission. He nodded. And Amelia? She's learning, I said. The hard way. The honest way. We worked until the river turned to charcoal, and the city switched on its necklace of lights. The sting went out on quiet feet. Messages to warehouse supervisors, sealed pallets, the discreet hum of a security company that doesn't put its name on trucks. At 8:13 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was short. You took my seat. Happy now? No signature, but the cologne practically seeped through the screen. I didn't reply. I forwarded the number to legal, then to our security contact, and added one line to my yellow pad. Curtis will escalate. Be calmer. If you must raise something, raise the standard, not your voice. The night before Christmas Eve smelled like chimney smoke and ambition. I stood at the penthouse window with the brass key in my palm and listened to the city hum without me. The phone lit my hand. Amelia. I made soup. I'm okay. Thank you for being firm without being cruel. I typed, asking me to stay away hurt. Teaching without humiliating heels. Then I deleted it and sent a shorter truth. I love you. Sleep. The RFID dashboard pinged at 11:47 p.m. 2 green dots, our bait pallets, blinked alive on the screen. At 1:12 a.m., the dot shivered. At 1:16, it moved. I texted Mark one word, go. 5 minutes later, he replied with a screenshot, a camera still of Warehouse D South exit, door yawning like a bad idea. The forklift posture in the frame was a religion that had run out of hymns. At 1:22, a second figure stepped into view, shorter, quick, head down. The angle caught a brief, betraying detail. Distinctive soles on cheap dress shoes, the kind Elliot liked to call discreet luxury when he was being aspirational on a budget. These weren't Elliot's, but I had seen that tread a dozen times in our building. Security? I said into the phone, voice even. Don't stop them. Follow. We watched the green dots travel 2 miles and stutter at a storage unit on the edge of town. The unit belonged to a company that belonged to a cousin that belonged to a story that had finally reached its last paragraph. At 2:04 a.m., security texted me a photo from the parking lot. Curtis, under a bare bulb, texting furiously, his face lit upward like a campfire ghost. Beside him, a man I recognized from the vendor list as Ralph Kinney, a procurement middleman with a laugh like loose parts in an engine. My stomach did a small, specific thing, not fear. Confirmation. I didn't order a takedown. Men like Curtis want to be tackled so they can call themselves persecuted. I ordered witnesses. 3. From 3 different angles. If you want Savannah to believe you forever, don't give them a story. Give them angles. At 2:31, the dots stopped moving. At 2:37, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, new tone. You made this personal. I turned the phone face down and told the room the oldest truth I know. You did, I said to the night, to the river, to the ghost of every man who ever mistook another man's patience for permission. On Christmas Eve, Curtis will learn what it means to be caught from 3 angles, and Amelia will open the only gift I have left that matters, a seat at my table with rules written in respect. Before midnight, One more betrayal will surface, the quiet one, and the Bentley key will change hands in a way no one in Savannah will forget. Keep your notifications on. Next act arrives like a knock on a locked door. Cold open pulse, where we're headed. By midnight on Christmas Eve, the warehouse thing would close from 3 angles. A partner would sign his own exit with a pen he didn't know he'd been handed, and my daughter would step back through my door, eyes red, spine straighter, to accept the one gift money can't counterfeit: terms. The Bentley key would not vanish. It would choose, stay with me, because the softest sentence tonight will cost the most. Locked in? Tap subscribe. Christmas Eve in Savannah smells like cinnamon, chimney smoke, and old decisions. The sky had polished itself into a hard winter blue, and the river, unbothered by holidays, kept working. So did we. At dawn, I met Mark at the office. He looked like a man who'd stayed up with numbers and conscience until both blinked first. On the table, printouts from the RFID dashboard, timestamps, photos from the storage facility, like holy icons for whoever still believes in proof. Security tailed without spooking them, he said, sliding a set of images toward me. Curtis under the bare bulb, posture rehearsed. Ralph Kinney next to him, grin poured thin, a roll-up door yawning while pallets hid their hearts. We wait, I said. They'll move again tonight. Thieves love holidays. We'll give them rope enough to make a decision about which way they want to climb. He exhaled, relief threaded through worry. And Amelia? I looked past him at the river, that old professor. She'll come by this afternoon. I asked her to bring the envelope. We're going to rewrite it together. He nodded. You still pausing the Bentley? Pausing as a teacher, I said. Tonight we'll see if the student wants tuition or just diploma pictures. We worked through the morning with the kind of focus that feels like prayer. Legal drafted affidavits. Insurance updated their chart of what misery looks like when it learns arithmetic. Our security team, comforting in their smallness and competence, parked 2 cars where nobody looks twice. One near Warehouse D, one near the storage facility whose paperwork was a genealogy of cousins and lies. At noon, I walked the squares. Savannah wraps its secrets in ribbons this time of year and calls it tradition. Choirs were practicing somewhere. Children chased each other between oak shadows like punctuation that refuses to obey commas. I let the city's breath wash my face clean. If you can breathe, you can choose. Curtis stared at the photos too long, then at me. You set me up. We set a mirror down, I said. You walked in front of it. Ralph coughed a laugh that died quickly. This is all very dramatic, he said, voice trying to borrow depth. But I don't see police. You will, I said, if cooperation fails. Curtis's eyes slid to Amelia, like a burglar checking a window, and did a thing I disliked more than most crimes. He tried a charm on my child. Mia. It's Amelia, she said, not loud, not mean. Correct. And I'm not a window. For a second, the room forgot to breathe. Curtis's smile retreated, surprised by the cost of using the wrong name in a house where names are paid for. Boundaries are love wearing a badge. Legal took the next 10 minutes, measuring sentences like carpenters measure stairs. Suspension terms. Return of misappropriated goods. Cooperation clause. Admission of wrongdoing. Restitution schedule index to the value of trust lost. Yes, there's a number for that when you decide to invent it. Curtis skimmed. You try bravado. This is fantasy. You don't have the guts to take me to court. Our investors will panic. Your precious Savannah will whisper. Savannah whispers when the weather changes, I said. It still goes to church. And investors prefer boring checks to interesting excuses. Sign. He looked at Mark, the place where he'd always hidden when he wanted a gentler room. You're going to let him erase me? Mark's voice didn't break. You erase yourself. We're just updating the records. Curtis laughed a little, then a lot, then the kind of laugh men use to stall while their brain searches for a staircase. Fine, he said at last, snagging the pen like a weapon. I'll sign your Christmas play, but I'll add a note. He wrote his name with the same flourish he once used to sign partnership documents. Then, under cooperation, he wrote a sentence that was supposed to turn tables. Ralph approached me. Ralph ran procurement. Ralph knew the doors. He signed that too and slid it back with a grin that said, "Checkmate." Ralph sat upright, betrayed by the man who taught him betrayal, and choked on outrage. "You," he sputtered, then rounded on me. "You can't," he told me. "I can," I said, and slid a second folder to Ralph. "This one has your angles." Ralph opened it, looked at the 3 photographs, his face in profile under the storage unit bulb, his signature on a vendor authorization, his car parked in a lane reserved for night shift managers he wasn't supposed to be. His mouth tried to form innocence and fell into shape around truth instead. "I'll cooperate," he whispered. "I'll give you names." "Good," I said. "Speak them slowly." He did. 3 wholesalers. 1 dock supervisor with a gambling problem. A courier who liked Christmas because guards are tired then. He spoke like a man emptying his pockets on a rainy day and praying a bus would stop. Legal wrote. Mark recorded. Amelia watched without flinching. When the names were done and the water pitcher lighter, I collected the papers into a tidy future and took out a final sheet. It was not for Curtis. It was for Amelia. "Read it," I said. She did. The room did too, because rooms listen harder when they can smell a turning. Board resolution. Chair on family access. Effective immediately, shareholder meetings and year-end gatherings will include an open chair labeled family. This chair is not optics. It is origin. The person who earns it by showing up and respecting the room may sit. The person who tries to manage it will find it empty. Amelia's mouth trembled, then steadied. She looked at me with something alight behind the grief. Understanding's older sister. "I want to sit there," she said. "Then sit," I said, and watched the chair become hers because she chose it, not because I paid for it. Curtis couldn't stand the ceremony of being uninvited from a world he had measured with wrong rulers. "You two are adorable," he sneered. "Won't play well on page 7 when the city learns Daddy made his little girl chairwoman of Christmas." "Let them read," Amelia said, voice clean. "They'll learn a new word, accountability." He stood, scraping the chair like a bad violin. "You think paper saves you," he told me, trying one last theology. "There are favors in this town you can't see. Tell them to invoice me," I said. "I don't pay in rumors." 2 plainclothes officers stepped into the doorway then. Not with handcuffs, not with theatrics, just with presence and a quiet request for statements. We weren't there yet to arrest, but we were there to begin. Curtis's shoulders did that thing again, brittle leaving. He assessed the angles. He found no friends, only witnesses. He did not speak. He left. Ralph left with an officer and a folder containing his first honest plan. The room deflated like a lung, finishing a long, necessary exhale. Mark sat, legal packed. Security melted. The river outside kept teaching. Amelia stayed. She came to the open chair and put her hand on the back of it like a blessing. "I have something for you," she said. She opened her bag and took out the brass key. For a second, my heart misunderstood and prepared itself to be noble. "No," she said gently, and placed the key not on my palm but on the table between us. "It belongs between us until March. I'll carry the weight in my pocket. The key will live where decisions do." I nodded, surprised by how right that felt. Agreed. We cleaned up the language of the day. Mark left with a box of hard truths. Legal left with paper that would become protective walls. The officers left, promising to call after Santa finished his route. When the door clicked and the heat kicked and the clock blinked 5:30, the office felt like a church after a wedding. Flowers a little tired, floors scattered with confetti someone will sweep, joy not loud but earned. "Want to walk?" I asked. We walked the river as the town set out its candles. The light caught on water like forgiveness, trying to be visible. Carolers tuned their courage. Somewhere, a kitchen declared allegiance to nutmeg. Amelia looped her arm through mine. "Tell me about Mom," she said suddenly. "Not the hospital story. The Christmas stories." What she laughed at. I told her. About the year we burned the rolls twice because we were arguing over whose turn it was to tell the story of the donkey. About the time your mother taped 20 candy canes under the dining table and made everyone find one before dessert. About the year we ate pancakes for dinner because money was thin and joy wasn't. She laughed, cried, wiped both away with the same sleeve. "I want that," she said, "not the gala story." "The gala story is over," I said. "Our story isn't." We reached Johnson Square and sat where once I'd learned how to text without bleeding. The live oaks wore lights like they believed in decorating roots. Two kids argued about Santa with the seriousness of senators. "Dad," she said, voice smaller now that the anger had moved out, "do you forgive me?" "Every day," I said, "and again at night." Forgiveness doesn't replace consequences, it escorts them. She breathed a grateful sound. "Then I forgive you too," she added, smiling at my surprise, "for being so good at gifts that I forgot how to earn them." We both learned a language that made silence feel smart. I nodded, chastened by my own cleverness. "No more smart silence," I said. "Only useful." A bell chimed 6. The river shrugged, pulled another ship along. My phone buzzed. "Mark, moving again." "Same unit." "They're greedy." A second text from security. "We have video of cash changing hands." Solid. I showed her the messages. "Want to see what restitution looks like when it thinks it's making rent?" She glanced at the screen, shook her head. "I'd rather see what Christmas looks like when it's not for sale." We stood. We walked back toward the office by way of the cathedral, where a small crowd filed in for early service. Candlelight made strangers look related. We didn't go in, but we stood on the steps a minute just to borrow the sound of people deciding to be better. Back upstairs, the Sting wrote its own last chapter. Security streamed the storage unit's grainy ballet to a laptop. Curtis, poorly disguised in a ball cap. Ralph, not disguised at all. Two linebackers of men who thought moving boxes made them invisible. Cash. A handshake. A pallet shifting like a guilty shoulder. 3 angles. Timestamps. The kind of footage juries don't argue with because the math is simple. Here, here, here. "Call it," I said. Legal called. Not the kind of call that sends sirens. The kind that sends paper to doors with practice at receiving it. A judge who celebrates Christmas by protecting the word owner. A clerk who knows how to make a holiday warrant turn faster than rumor. A detective who prefers clean collars to dramatic cuffs. "Do you want to be present?" Mark asked. "I want to be absent," I said. "Let the city do her job. We've done ours." Amelia stood at the window, looking out at lights that pretended they were stars. "Can I ask for something?" she said without turning. "Ask. If Christmas Eve dinner is at your place tomorrow, can I cook?" "Can you cook?" I teased. "No," she admitted, laughing, "but I can learn." "Then yes," I said. "Pancakes and candy canes under chairs. We'll burn the rolls for tradition." She wiped her eyes with a knuckle. "Deal." The phone buzzed again at 9:14 p.m. Security. Officers on site. "Come detain." Both cooperating. A second ping. Storage unit sealed. Chain of custody established. A third, a photo from the parking lot. Curtis, hands on the hood of his car, not cuffed, head bowed. Not shame. Arithmetic finally catching up to confidence. I sat down and discovered I was tired in the good way, like work that built something. Amelia came behind me and set her hands on my shoulders the way children do when they remember who taught them their first balance. I'm proud of you, she said. I'm proud of us, I said. Being right is boring. Being better is a story. She picked up the brass key from the table and weighed it in her palm, then set it back between us. March, she said like a promise. March, I echoed. We locked the office, walked out into a Savannah that had decided to forgive us for insisting on paper. Snow is rare here, but that night the air had a crispness that felt like permission. The city didn't snow, it sparkled. At my door, I hugged my daughter with both arms and no performance. Tomorrow, I said, 4 o'clock, soup and pancakes. And candy canes, she added, and a chair with my name on it, I teased. She put a hand to my cheek the way mothers do when they are daughters and daughters do when they promise to become mothers someday. Always, she said, even when you can't come. She walked toward a future she had chosen. I watched until the elevator doors did their soft waiter cough and closed. Inside, I stood a moment in the quiet and learned how to breathe like a man not holding his house up alone. Then I set the table. 1, 2, 3 plates. And on the fourth chair, the one with my name, I placed a folded card that said reserved. Not for me, for us. Power is the ability to choose the gentle thing and still be obeyed. At 10:03 p.m., my phone lit with a final text from security. Both parties signed statements. Inventory located. Detectives request Monday meeting. Merry Christmas. I texted back. And to you. Then I put the phone face down and listened to the city's hymn. The Bentley key lay where we'd left it, the exact middle. It looked content. I poured myself tea. I wrote 3 lines on my yellow pad. 1. Restitution, full return, with interest donated to the Port Workers Scholarship. 2. Amelia, Saturday morning's warehouse D. Let her sign the first clean pallet. 3. Christmas, pancakes, candy canes, chair forever. When I closed the pad, the house felt less like a penthouse and more like a place. And for the first time since the gala, I slept deep, as if the river had rocked the building and said, enough. On Christmas Day, Savannah will eat pancakes in a house that remembers how to laugh. The port will receive a scholarship it didn't know it deserved, and a daughter will ask the hardest question of all. Dad, what happens to us when you're gone? The answer will turn a Bentley into a classroom, a penthouse into a covenant, and a family into a legacy with rules you can touch. Turn on notifications. Act 4 lands with a New Year's bell. By noon on Christmas Day, pancakes will steam on my table. A port scholarship will be born from stolen goods turned right, and the man who mistook rumor for strategy will make one last, messy play in public. It won't save him. It will finish him. Stay with me, because the gentlest line I speak today will do the most damage, and the final 5 lines will turn a Bentley into a classroom and a penthouse into a promise you can touch. If you're with me to the end, tap subscribe and drop your time zone. Christmas Day arrived like a clean page. Savannah's sky had the washed blue of an early apology. Church bells tuned the air. I whisked batter in a mixing bowl big enough to feed a neighborhood. Eggs, milk, flour, and the stubborn belief that pancakes can glue a room back together. On the table, candy canes taped under the chairs, because some traditions are silly on purpose. At 9:02 a.m., the doorbell rang. I opened to Amelia, holding a bag of groceries like a trophy. She wore a sweater large enough to forgive anyone and eyes that had learned to tell the truth without crying first. I brought blueberries, she said, and ambitions. Ambitions go on the top shelf, I said, taking the bag. Blueberries in the batter. We cooked badly and laughed well. I burned a pan in deference to history. She taped candy canes under chairs like a magician hiding proof. The house smelled like syrup and wise decisions. When we finally sat, I slid a folded card onto her plate. Port Scholarship Fund, seed gift. Her eyes widened. What is this? Restitution, I said. Curtis and Ralph signed over every penny we pulled back. Legal routed it here. A scholarship for dockworkers' kids. First award in June. Name to be decided by the person in this room who learned the difference between inheritance and inventory. Her throat worked around gratitude. Mom's name, she said softly. Call it the Elena Tide Scholarship. So every kid who earns it remembers that steady water lifts families. Done, I said, and meant it so deep my ribs hummed. We ate, and for a while we were just people with syrup on our sleeves. After a second helping, she leaned back and watched me in that way grown children do when they're auditioning to be elders someday. Dad, she said, what happens to us when you're gone? A quiet question, not designed to hurt, designed to finish growing up. I poured more coffee. When, not if. Good. Here's the truth. I don't believe in leaving a fortune without leaving rules. So I built something. It's boring on paper. It's loud in practice. I call it the legacy ledger. She sat forward. Show me. I brought out a slim binder. Tabbed, crisp, handwritten where it mattered. Inside, for sections. 1. The table rule. Every house I own keeps an open chair marked family. Whoever respects it sits. Whoever tries to manage it finds it empty. 2. The key rule. No title transfers without a season of pause. Keys may be carried for weight, not used for escape. 3. The Saturday rule. Between now and next Christmas, we spend 40 Saturdays together in Warehouse D. You sign the first clean palette in red ink. 4. The quiet rule. We do hard things quietly. No humiliation, no spectacle, unless someone drags us into the street. Then we bring paper. She touched the tabs like Braille for a language her hands already knew. 40 Saturdays, she repeated, smiling. That's a lot of coffee. It's a lot of we, I said. We cleaned up in an easy choreography families earn. Halfway through dishes, my phone lit the counter. Mark. I wiped my hands and answered on speaker. Merry Christmas, he said, breathless with news. Detectives finished interviews. Ralph's already singing carols of cooperation. Curtis's counsel requested a deal. He'll sign full restitution, exit for cause, and a non-disparagement so strict he can't gossip to his mirror. Good, I said, but the way you say good to a weather report. Let the process breathe. One more thing, Mark added. You might want to keep the quiet rule handy. Word is, Curtis is headed to the Cathedral Square, where the paper's photographer likes to happen upon city folk. He thinks a little theater might pressure you. I looked at Amelia. She looked back without flinching. If he drags us into the street, she said, we bring paper. Paper and pancakes, I said, and grabbed the binder. Cathedral Square at noon could convert an atheist. Candles inside, brass outside, a choir warming up on the steps like a bright rumor. Families floated past in holiday wool. The press camera I knew by name crouched by a planter pretending to admire shrubs. Curtis arrived 10 minutes later. No tie, no plan B, followed by a cousin with a phone and the face of a loyal mistake. He spotted us and ramped his stride the way men do when they think speed equals righteousness. Perfect, he said, planting himself in front of the steps like he'd rented them. The patriarch and the princess. Smile for the paper. The photographer didn't lift his camera. He learned my quiet rule before I wrote it. Curtis spread his hands for the gathering small crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas. The good book says the truth sets you free. I'm here to tell some. My former partner, he gestured to me with a flourish, isn't just a generous benefactor. He's also a man who punishes family and frames friends. He turned Christmas into court. I held up the binder, not high just enough. Curtis, I said gently, the last time you told the truth, it accidentally came out in 3 angles. Would you like to see them again? I nodded to Mark, who had arrived with exactly the number of witnesses the city trusts. He opened a tablet. On the screen, under winter sun, the stills bloomed. Storage unit, cash pallet shift. 3 angles. Time stamped. Dates wearing suits. A murmur moved through the square like a small warm wind. Curtis's cousin lowered his phone 2 inches, which in the language of cousins is treason. Curtis laughed, but his throat didn't. You staged this. Everyone stages everything now. He staged this. I staged lighting, I said. You staged the rest. He pivoted to Amelia, charm drawn like a dull knife. Mia, sweetheart. It's Amelia, she said, calm as a gavel. And I don't speak to men who take chairs they didn't earn. A woman behind us, gray hair, red coat, said men the way old Savannah women season the air. Curtis tried a different door. Fine, let's talk business. You can't legally. Shoo, I said, and the word landed like a blanket. If you insist on a public conversation, we will have a public accounting. Here it is. I flipped the binder open to a single prepared page and read, voice steady enough to pour. On December 23rd, the company obtained signed cooperation from Ralph Kinney, confirming Mr. Holt's role in the unauthorized movement of goods. On December 24th, under warrant, storage was sealed, chain of custody preserved, and inventory recovered. On December 25th, a donor fund seeded by returned assets established the Elena Tide Scholarship for Port families. I closed the binder. Merry Christmas. He blinked. He wasn't expecting quiet to be louder than his performance, so he tried to step past it. The paper won't print, your little. The photographer finally lifted his camera, not toward Curtis, but toward a small placard Mark had just set on the cathedral steps. Elena Tide Scholarship. Port Family's first award June. It wasn't a press conference. It was news. Curtis turned to the crowd for oxygen. He found none. He tried one last thing, the thing men try when they've run out of tools. He raised his voice. That Bentley, he said, pointing at nothing, the one he flaunts for his princess, he uses it to buy obedience. A few heads swiveled, hungry for sugar. Amelia stepped forward before I could, voice low enough to make heads lean in. The Bentley is paused, she said. The title is paused. The lesson is not. I carry the key for weight. I drive his old sedan for humility. That's our Christmas. It landed like a stamp on wet wax. The crowd's attention left him the way lights leave a room when somebody flips the switch near the door. He felt it, the sudden unimportance, and did what men do when they realize the floor isn't theirs. He backed away, blaming gravity. We're not done, he muttered. We are, I said kindly. If you want more time, ask the judge. They love calendars. He left, cousin in tow, the photographer already walking briskly toward the placard that actually mattered. The choir on the steps began the carol they'd been holding. The city exhaled. Amelia turned to me, not triumphant, relieved. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for speaking only what needed saying. I said, restraint is a language. We stayed long enough for one verse and a smile from a priest who made eye contact like a benediction. Then we walked home the long way, through squares teaching their annual class on twinkle lights and patience. Some victories are won by lowering your voice and raising your standards. Evening fell with cinnamon fingers. Back at the penthouse, we set the table for 3, me, Amelia, and the open chair. We labeled it with a place card that simply read reserved. Not a performance, for memory. We made pancakes again, for dinner this time, because consistency is a hallway children like to walk. Halfway through the first bite, Amelia put down her fork and nodded toward my yellow pad. "For Saturday's down," she said. 36 to go. 36 chances to learn which pallets creak when you lean wrong, I said. She laughed. "And which fathers do." We ate, and I told her stories I'd saved. How her mother once convinced a shipping inspector to sing with her so he'd stop scowling. How Mark used to leave motivational quotes on forklifts. How Curtis used to bring coffee to night crews before he figured out he could steal from them more efficiently in the dark. The room didn't flinch. Truth makes furniture sturdier. At 8:11 p.m., my phone chimed. Detective Moore, Holtz signed. Full restitution. Cooperation against broadery. No contest plea likely. Court in January. Merry Christmas. I read aloud. Amelia reached, squeezed my hand, the adult squeeze that says we. I closed the legacy ledger and set it on the shelf where recipes live. "One more thing," I said. She looked at me like a woman bracing for another lesson and hoping it's dessert. I brought out a narrow box. Not the Bentley key. She already had the weight of that. This box held a pen. Not expensive, heavy. "It's your red ink pen," I said. "For the first clean palette you sign. For the first scholarship letter you send. For the first contract you refuse because the money smells wrong. Pens make rules feel permanent." She opened the box, held the pen like a wand she didn't trust yet. "How will I know when to use it?" "You'll feel heat in your throat," I said. "That's your line asking for a spine." We were quiet. Outside, the river moved like a promise that doesn't need witnesses. I gathered the plates. Amelia stood, then hesitated. "I want to say something," she said. "For the record. For us." I sat back down. "I'm sorry," she began, but I raised a hand. "Don't spend that word all at once," I said. "Use it on yourself, too." She smiled. "Then, I promise to host Christmas Eve every year, even if the only guest is your empty chair. I promise to drive the old sedan with gratitude. And if I can park it 12 times without rolling my eyes, I'll accept horsepower. I promise to show up on Saturdays, learn in public, and sign clean palettes in red ink. I promise not to manage optics more than I manage truth. And I promise to love you out loud, not quietly for the comfort of strangers." I could have met those vows with eloquence. I chose better. "I receive it," I said. We hugged. Not the easy hug of sitcoms. The earned hug of people who chose rules because love asked them to. Near midnight, we walked one last loop to the terrace. Savannah sparkled exactly as much as a city should. Somewhere, a neighbor burned rolls and laughed anyway. A ship horn carried across the water like a baritone amen. "Tell me the last piece," Amelia said, leaning on the railing. "There has to be a last piece. You're a systems man." I took out my phone and opened a simple document. Title transfer instruction deferred. One paragraph. No italics. No legal lace. Penthouse covenant. Title transfers next Christmas Eve at your table. To you, in front of witnesses, if 1. You host a dinner. 2. The family chair is present. 3. The Elena Tide Scholarship has made its first award. 4. You place the Bentley key in the center of the table and ask out loud, "Have I earned this?" And 3 people who love you answer yes. She laughed through new tears. 3 people? Isn't that stacking the deck? It's stacking the truth, I said. You'll know which 3 to ask. People who don't need your car to get home. She looked at the city a long time, then back at me. Dad, yes. Have I earned tonight? I didn't make her wait. Yes. The word didn't fix the world. It fixed the room. We went inside. I tucked the binder away. She placed the red ink pen on the mantel, a tiny lighthouse. I turned off lights until the house was mostly shadow and memory. At the door, she put the Bentley key on the table again, between us, and tapped it twice. "March," she said, half warning, half song. "March," I echoed. She left. The elevator closed with its soft waiter's cough. I stood in the quiet long enough to feel grateful for it. Then I poured tea and wrote the last 3 lines of a pad I'd been filling for a lifetime. 1. Legacy, not what you leave to them, what you leave in them. 2. Power, not volume, verification. 3. Love, not rescue rules. I tore the page, taped it inside the legacy ledger, and slid the binder home. The city slept. The open chair faced the table with the confidence of a thing that will be honored. The candy canes waited to be found by someone who forgot they were there. The Bentley key sat exactly where it should, centered, patient, educational. Final quote. The richest inheritance is a map that still works when the lights go out. I turned off the last lamp, and Savannah nodded back. River steady, bells at ease, night satisfied. Christmas was not a story we survived. It was a system we built. And in the middle of it, where everyone could see, a father finally taught his family the only lesson that scales. Choose respect first. The rest will follow.